Hello, everyone. Welcome to a TopSoil webinar. For this conversation here today. We've had a lot of different stuff that we've been talking about, a lot of different topics, with 45Z and CI and all that good stuff. But excited today to just talk about leadership and ag in general and all that with a guy who's been a great mentor to me. We've built a cool camaraderie over the last couple of years and built off of decades of decades of relationship, and that's really what ag is all about. But Russ Green is my host here today. I'll let him share some of his background and stuff here in just a little bit and cue him in. But for anyone that's new to Continuum, we put on these webinars. We're a software company based in Washington, Iowa, primarily helping farmers quantify, verify their CI scores, their carbon intensity score. But really, it's helping farmers manage data, tell their story, access new markets, all that good stuff. But today, we're kind of talking about a slightly different topic here with my guest Russ here, talking about some of his background, in ag leadership and equipment, but just how ag and this data stuff and technology has changed over the last multiple years, how leadership is different now. Excited to just dig into that. I think everyone's going to learn a lot here. I always learn a ton from hanging out with Russ, and this has been something that I think we can continue to build off of and uh, potentially lead to some additional follow up stuff or other content, whatnot as well. But anyway, without further ado, I'll let Russ introduce himself. We've got a couple things that to kind of queue up the conversation. For any of you guys that have questions and stuff as well, you can use the chat function. You can use the Q&A function. Or if you're listening to this afterwards, you can hit us. Both Rusty and I are fairly accessible, and I can make any connections and whatnot as well. But Russ, thank you, number one, for being a great mentor to me. I've learned a tremendous amount from you. Always really enjoy our conversations and things we've had going, and uh, didn't know exactly what we were getting into a couple of years ago when we first really got connected, but it's been awesome to see what has blossomed. And we'll share some of that here with the world here today, or with the Continuum Ag part of the world anyway, here today. But anyway, Russ, why don't I turn it over to you? Thanks for being on. Give a little intro, and we can walk through your slides, but take things wherever we want to go here.
You're way too kind. You're way too kind. I find myself feeling homesick when I know that you're presenting from the square in Washington, Iowa, and yeah, some 50, 60 years ago, I was walking the same streets you're walking. I have a strong part in my heart. Obviously, my wife Katie and I are both local Washingtonians. Still have some roots back in that area. But the work I do with you and the cohort of young people like you is certainly inspirational. To find someone who's taken the risk of an entrepreneur, building a team, devoting themselves to technology and innovation in agriculture, those are pretty sweet deals. And this year, Mitch, I am celebrating my 50th year in agriculture. Started my career as a teacher and a coach in Marshalltown, Iowa. Within 2 years of that career, I pivoted into agriculture really as a friend of my father-in-law coached me into it at that point in time. And little did I know how passionately in love I would fall with the industry. It's a noble industry. I've bounced around in it quite a bit. I think the only company that hasn't employed me is the Iowa company John Deere, but I'm still friendly with them and they're friendly with me. And four companies onshoring some brands, and that'll become apparent as we talk through this. But I'm really pleased to be here. I'm really pleased to work with a team that's as inspirational as Continuum Magazine. And I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks when I get a chance to come back to Washington and watch you perform in your topsoil event. So
Yeah,
if you'll advance, we'll talk about this. I use this slide purposely, and I use it frequently. I've developed a leadership academy, and one of the modules in that academy is this module about the seasons of agriculture. So let me build this up right and left. There's a column to the right and a line at the bottom, and the pie chart's somewhat illustrative of your circle of life.
Yeah.
And I say the seasons of agriculture, there's 6 of them. There's the youth seasons of the 4-H, the FFA, the AFA, and then you enter your career, you mentor in your career, and then you get a chance to reflect back. So if you think about it, the 4-H has 6 million young people in the 4-H. And then that's where you start to, clover kids, I think is the term used when you're an 8-year-old and you enter into the 4-H and you have different clubs and associations that are built by the volunteerism of the chapter advisors and leaders. And you get a chance to start to build the understanding of agriculture and teamwork.
Mhm.
At 14, you transition to the FFA, and the FFA is driven by the success and the strength of the advisor in the local school system. And the FFA is at a record level, 1 million members of the FFA. And that's where you start to develop competition and spirit of professionalism and deep learning. And you have their supervised agricultural experience, which anyone that has a blue jacket knows what that is. But look at the numbers. From 4-H to FFA, we've gone from 6 million to 1 million. So 5 out of 6 young people have, I'm not saying they've left an interest in agriculture, but they're not in the heart of it. And I think this is what drives me in the work that I do now, is that what I'm trying to do is to make agriculture not only a noble profession, but also an essential and vital profession. That if you're going to be a lawyer, which I have a couple of those, if you're going to be a lawyer, be an ag lawyer. Want to be an accountant? Want to be a CPA? Be an ag CPA. You want to work in logistics? Work in agricultural. Now, the next group, AFA, is the collegiate arm. And there's probably about 8,000 young people in the Ag Futures of America where you start to kind of specialize and apply your learning into an application, which could result in an internship. And there's a leadership conference every year, as you well know, in Kansas City that's hosted by AFA. So you've got those first 3 foundational platforms, 6 million, 1 million, 8,000. Each year, there's over 500,000 jobs in the food channel, from the farm gate to the dinner plate, that rotate out every year. And to think that we're preparing 8,000 young people to take over 500,000 jobs, there's a disconnect. So that's where the work that I comes into play. Now, you enter the workforce as a 23-year-old, and that's kind of the right-hand side of the pie chart, the 3 o'clock position, and you start to put yourself to work. And many of your friends and cohorts are in that stage of their career. They've entered the workforce. They're putting their knowledge to work. They're starting to balance themselves. And there's a study that's been done that by the time you're 33 years old, you probably have a supervisory role. You're probably managing people. Now, in that same study, the fact is you don't get leadership training until you're 42. So there's a 9-year gap from when you start managing people and becoming a leader, as opposed to when you're trained to be a leader. As you transition past your I think the most important phase is who's leading our companies today and who's mentoring our people today is the 6 to 9 o'clock position. And that way I call mentoring. That's when you start balancing others and you start paying back to those that you have seen. And you become the leaders of organizations. More importantly, the leaders of communities, maybe involve the leaders of organizations that are driving different aspects of regulatory issues or policy. And that engagement, that volunteerism, and that work as you mentor others is important. Yeah. So now you get to my pie. Now, 63 years old. I wish I was. At 63 to 75, you start to reflect, and you can, some say pay forward, some say pay back. And that's where I am with MACKAYBEN. You'll see that this group is where I pick out, kind of handpick the young people that I think are leading in their communities, leading in their industries, leading in their businesses, maybe taking risk as entrepreneurs. And I try and give them a help up, maybe move a rock off the road, We talk about the problems that I've seen and I've had through my career, hopefully to make their career more enriched. So those are the 6 seasons of agriculture. You start with a 4-H and you migrate to FFA. From FFA, you go to AFA, enter the workforce, mentor the workforce, and then lastly, you give back. And you can see on the bottom, uh, 4-H is over 100 years old. Started in
Yeah.
1902. FFA, uh, soon to celebrate its anniversary. And AFA, a much younger organization, but equally as important and making a difference at the collegiate age. So
So
that's the
Russ, to
season.
I love this, and to tie it back, to our Washington story here, of course, we've got Washington County, Iowa's #1 for 4-H participation in the state, led
That's
by
what I understand.
led
That's
by
what I
your niece-in-law, Amy. Um, and so Washington very much doing well on the 4-H side. I would have to assume, we're not a large enough county to maybe have the biggest FFA chapters, but of course, quite strong and growing. And local school Waco just recently added an FFA program and whatnot. But yeah, the AFA one definitely makes sense. That's not as many. Do you also think that the big disconnect between 6 million in 4-H to 1 million in FFA, just not enough schools that even have programs and stuff? Is that
it, it,
like, or
it's
like, what do you see as some of the major reasons that there's a drop off there?
it's not necessarily the number of schools as it is the ability to find advisors and to afford the program within the schools. You've got some schools, if you go to the annual convention in Indianapolis and you see 55,000 young people take over downtown Indianapolis, it's about the secret sauce of the FFA is the advisors. And what happens is in the advisors, they're teachers, of course, but they put in more time than the football coach.
Yeah.
By the time you've got 45, 60 members of your FFA and you're working on a supervised agricultural experience for each of those, it takes a lot of time. And then we in the industry, what do? We pick those people off to come into the industry and give them maybe a taller salary and promises of expectations. But I appreciate you citing Amy too, and I'll make a comment about that. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. I know that Amy's mother before her was in a similar position, and that whole family has given of themselves. And when it's late summer time frame for whether county fairs and state fairs, it's go time, and they spend a lot of time. But it pays back to you in riches tenfold because you get to work with young people that are competing. They've either their project's been an animal or their project's been photography, whatever it may be, and then they get to go to the state level. And that's where young people today, and I'll talk about digitization, I'll talk about the use of the cell phone, but the chance to meet other young people and be connected and start connecting the dots with friendships that'll last a lifetime. I'm confident that when you competed, whether it was athletically or whether it was socially through your farm work, before you went to Iowa State, you knew a number of people before you ever left the
Oh yeah,
community.
yeah,
My
tons.
dad got a nosebleed when he got 45 miles from home, so our family was very parochial. My wife's family a little bit more. The Robertsons a little more well traveled, but today the vistas that are available through travel are vast. So, all
Yeah, yeah.
right, let's move
No,
on.
absolutely. Yeah, let's keep going here.
All right, so here's the day. I have a group called MACKAYBEN, and MACKAYBEN, and as you well know, Mitch, is named after my first 3 grandchildren, Mac, Kaylee, and Ben. I started it in 2012 when I was in between careers, but I put it on recess for about a decade before I really re-engaged in it in 2021. But MACKAYBEN is the next generation of agricultural leaders. I look at 26 to 36-year-olds, and they're probably like Mitch, second, third, fourth generation, maybe entrepreneurs starting a business, starting a corporation. But because of my experience and background, I wanted to move on. My CFO won't let me buy a boat. I'm a very poor golfer, so why would I want to waste that time? So this is where I invest my time in trying to find the rocks that are on the road for young people as they move forward in their careers. So MACKAYBEN, we've probably had maybe as many as 32, 34 young people through it. Today we have 21. I'll introduce you to them. But even your friend, you and your friend Zach Johnson were founding members of this group in 2021. So that's MACKAYBEN. Then on the right, the next, I work with a group of 9 advisors that are all professionals. We call it MAC, the Machinery Advisors. And we're working with 45 and over owners of businesses. We have 60 corporations, and those 60 off-highway corporations, Ag and CE, have 390 rooftops, in other words, storefronts. And we meet with them twice a year, face-to-face, talking about how to elevate their business. Our byline is we coach those dealers to peak performance. And we could be talking about sales, we could be talking about service, we could talk about parts, we could be talking about personnel, we could be talking about communities, but each meeting has a little different flavor. I like it for variety. There's a high intensity of variety. When these members come together, they act like a board of directors for each other. And they're all colors. We've got red, green, blue, orange. We've got a construction, we have ag, and we have built that business on the ability to make those dealers higher performers in their market. We see the gap between a 36 and a 45. We got a gap. So I filled it. And what I filled it with is this relationship with Strativation. And Strativation is one of my millennials, Cam Camfield, started the business 6-7 years ago, Columbus, Ohio, and it's a market research firm. And one day I visited Cam and said, hey, why not add a platform of training leadership into Strat Group? And we thought it was a good idea. So we developed the Strativation Leadership Academy, powered by MACKAYBEN, powered by my background, and we have modules that help young people with both hard and soft skills of leadership. And what our goal is try and turn a 36-year-old into a 46-year-old real quick, or even maybe turn a 26-year-old into a 36-year-old real quick. So it's at its infancy. It's not a mature program yet, but once we got it off the ground, we said, hey, why not give it away? So if you look on the left, Strativation University, I work with 26 young people from 21 land-grant universities, mostly as a result of my relationship with the AFA. And once a month, we meet in both of those environments with a Zoom call, and we'll cover the waterfront of what the challenges are. And right now, with today's administration and the uncertainties in today's food channel, there's a lot to talk about. So that's Strat U and Strat Leadership Academy. You see in the bottom left, I've had affiliation not with the 4-H, but with FFA and AFA. And most recently, one of the organizations in the industry, the Association of Equipment Manufacturers, of which I've become a member, is starting what they call a Industry Youth Engagement Council. And the purpose of that council will be to make the off-highway industry, whether it's forestry, whether it's construction, or whether it's ag, an attractive industry for young people to move their careers into, and how we retain those people. There was a study done by McKinsey most recently, and it has to do with mentorship within businesses. And if a business has a strong mentoring program with its cohorts, there's a 35% higher retention rate to hold employees within that corporation and not move left or center. So I think that's important. So those are my 4 platforms. The MACKAYBEN group that you're part of, the MAC group is actually monetized, so I could buy a boat if I ever want to do that. But the other ones are kind of fostering for me to give back, and they keep me relevant. The young people that I work with in MACKAYBEN and those that I find through Strat Group are ones that keep my mind young and keep me thinking about the things that are important to you today.
Yeah.
So
We
the
kind
next
of
step is going to be the
kind of
group.
skipped over it before, but so much of this, it boils back to your own personal journey, right? And going through the stages of working through these equipment manufacturers primarily, and you've worked, like I said, with all of them except for worked very highly with all these equipment manufacturers except John Deere, and progressing through your career. And now it's, to your point, the reflection side of going back and building what you wish you would have had, right?
But even before that, I followed some pretty good mentors or role models when I was yet a citizen in Washington. People like Milo Steele. If I bring that name, Milo Steele had a big impact on a lot of people. He taught us how to swim, yeah, but he also taught us how to compete and how to win, and also to be good losers. Jim Jorgensen at the YMCA was a Y director when I was there, and at the time I grew up, Washington's YMCA was we were the second smallest community across the nation that had a Y, and that's what we didn't have tablets or phones to occupy our time and hold our hand. We had, if we wanted to do something, we went to the YMCA and played ping pong or had a hamburger bean day, and then found friends and people that we maybe played pool with, and that was our release. And people like Jim and Milo and other coaches, we were fortunate enough to have success in athletics, and whether it was Roger Harrington and Jim Rosine and Harry Olson and Syra, they taught us the importance of preparation and work. And then that helped me later in life when I said, all right, when you confront this problem, what would Jim have done? Or how did Milo help us prepare? So I had great mentors, and that went all the way through my career as well. Every place I landed, I performed better because I had some example to follow.
The Washington Y has changed a lot. We've built a new one here recently, and Diana here is extremely involved. I
We
forgot
yeah,
to
we've got a class of '69 plaque hang on the wall of the new Y. We're proud to do that.
That's great. That's great. Love it.
All right,
All
so
right,
here's
let's
the
keep
group.
rolling here.
Yeah, here's the group. Here's 21 people that I think are going to be very successful in agriculture. And as you go down through the 21, you'll see that I've got agronomists. The first three there, Progressive and Next and Continuum, all three are agronomists in the ag world. AgriPulse is a political publication that keeps us tied to the changes in Washington. Number five, another agronomist. The Moving Iron is a used equipment. AEM is an association. But some of them you look, you'll know. Ag Careers, number of 13. Clara is working to move people into the agricultural environment. AFA, number 15, Mercedes, and the team at AFA is very much about developing leadership. Corteva's mentioned, Farm Bureau's mentioned, animal health in Indiana. You stop and think about the avian bird flu that is a challenge to all of us. In this case, the young lady with that organization is on farms in the chicken poultry environment, investigating the source of the influenza and how it can be contained. So Tractor Zoom, and then finally my friends at John Deere got a spot on the list. So those are the young people, and we meet, like I said, if we can get 14 to 16 of the 21 together once a month, and we'll meet next Thursday and we'll talk about those problems. We talk about what we're reading, what's the literature we're reading, what we share with that. We'll talk about the events we're going to, and I think Mitch, 11 of you got together out in Denver this spring
A lot
at
of
the
us, yeah,
Commodity
out at
Classic. So
yeah, Commodity Classic.
yeah,
Yeah, it's been an interesting group, right? When you first started, it was, kind of the next gen Ag 10 and who are kind of some of the 10 movers and shakers, and it's expanded, and some folks have graduated out, like our friend we were talking about before we started this, Courtney Nupp, that of course now working uh in basically every picture that I see, she's the one standing right next to Secretary Rollins, and just about every picture that I've seen of Secretary Rollins working overseas and domestically here. So she, understandably so, had to back off out of the group a little bit. Um,
your cousin Zach Johnson, you're going to be with in a week and 10 days,
but
right? He was a founding.
Zach was a founding member. My buddy Zach. I mean, geez, some of these guys that lot of stuff going on, but been great to be able to just see and learn from them and with these meetings. I'm not able to make every single one, but I really try to make them because it's always different. It's always you're gonna find some little nugget and build relationships with these folks that you never know where it's gonna go,
Well, let
right?
me
You
tell a
never know
story
where it's
too.
gonna go. You're gonna
Yeah.
run into some of these folks. Obviously my stuff with AgriPulse has been amazing, and of course they have Washington, Iowa roots as well, with Sarah Wyatt, the founder there, being.
Take my technology, Mitch. I have trouble taking a picture with my phone. And you and about six, eight of your cohorts, not only are you on the call with your phone, but you're texting each other and probably ordering from Chick-fil-A at the same time. You guys are multitaskers
All the time. All the
all the
time.
time.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
been a fun group, and just interesting to learn, right? But what else do you really see as, obviously you always say, this group kind of keeps you relevant and is a good thing there, but what's your message, I suppose, for whether it be young folks that are listening to this or others that are listening to this in regards to being part of a network or peer group of sorts like this? And this isn't anything overly structured or anything, but just being
Powerful
able
question. That's a
to be
powerful. What I
connected.
want to do, what I want to do is connect the dots.
Yeah.
And as I said, there were 11 of you who were at the Commodity Classic. Probably of the 11, 3 to 5 already knew each other.
Mhm.
But at the Commodity Classic, you got to connect with a person from John Deere, maybe somebody from Tractor Zoom, maybe somebody from another enterprise. And as a new young entrepreneur addressing problems that other entrepreneurs of your genre, you can find out how they're solving problems.
Yeah.
And wait till you see the next 6 people that I invite in as I go through my journey and meet other what I call significant people whether they're in the organization world, whether they're in the other OEM world, manufacturing world. And what I want to do is I just want the 30 of you, which will probably grow to 30. I want the 30 of you to build off each other. And when you have a problem, it may be a problem that another cohort network member's already solved, or they may be trying to solve the same problem. And agriculture is a large, large industry, but it's very, very tightly networked in a very small way. You go through your career just like Courtney Nupp. I think Courtney's been involved. Of course, now I think she's on the alumni board of Iowa State University, which is pretty sweet in itself.
Hmm.
But Courtney's been through the soybean organization. She's been through the pork organization. Now she's setting and making, and I will say that's a personal sacrifice in a way, because Courtney could be enriched financially in a leadership role in some other organization easily with her background and talent, but she sees this as a way of giving back to all agriculturalists across all the United States on what she's doing at a governmental level, being the voice of the farm gate in a political environment. You got to realize what 1.6% of our society are producing agriculture, either in grain or protein, and 98.4% are telling us what we should do and setting regulations. And you're waiting on that yourself right now in your enterprise. So that's how important it is that somebody like a Courtney Knopp or somebody like a Mitchell Hora or somebody like a Amanda Martin are in leadership roles and helping to craft those situations or regulations.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're continuing to see it right on within the machinery side of things. And what was it, the with the right to work on your equipment and that kind of stuff, just different policy things that you've seen a lot in the equipment and in the iron space. And
And
um
there's safety in numbers. What we do as an organization, we ask AEM, the Associated Equipment Manufacturers, or AED, the Associates of Equipment Distributors, they lobby and they go to the Hill and try and portray the reality of how those laws or regulations are going to change and create uh, either economic opportunity or economic hardship, depending upon your point of view. And farmers work too hard to do that. They're busy working when somebody else is making legislature that tells them how they're supposed to work. And they just have their head down going all the time, forward, forward, forward. So they need those advocacies and they need those associations to speak for them. They need the Courtney Nupps.
yeah, 100%. I think, was that all your stuff on here for
That's
now?
me. That's what we wanted to cover, friend.
I've got a variety of questions, of course, and for all of you, I think Russ is a wealth of knowledge to ask questions and stuff of. But Russ, one of the things I wanted to ask you, You're incredibly good at relationships, keeping track of these folks over decades and decades of time. And some of the names you were talking about from 60 years ago, 50 years ago, the folks that were involved, and you still have relationships with these folks. What are some of those things that you do, or how do you keep track of all these different folks and relationships? And you're so amazing at keeping track of so many of the details of it as
Well,
well, of
don't
people's
forget the
families and
time.
kids. So how do you do it? 'Cause I'm not good at it, and you're amazing at
Well, don't forget the time that I have, Mitch. I mean, I'm not raising two children like you are, and starting a business and farming a farm
it.
and keeping a wife's dance academy. You've got a lot of things on your plate. Because of digitization, each morning I'll open my computer and I'll have somewhere between 8 and 18 news feeds from organizations that I'm part of. And interesting, let's say there's 10, of the 10 news feeds, 3 of them are saying the same thing. They're answering the same question. So I'm not a good reader. I'm not a good reader, but I'm a good watcher. And I'll watch what's going on. And if I see something that has materialism for one of the 21 members of our group, it's easy for me to pass that on and just to ping them, let them know something's going on. Later today, I'm going to be part of a focus group. And one of my clients is asking the question if there's a market for a robust side-by-side ATV. And we'll pull together 8 or 12 people. And instead of flying people to Chicago and sitting around a boardroom and having this conversation, you can do it virtually. So technology allows you to stay connected. And shame on you if you don't. I think everybody should probably set out, if just 15 minutes a day, just 15 minutes a day, and look for a reason to compliment somebody on something they've achieved. Now, LinkedIn is my new Rolodex. Probably today, I've added new connectivity on LinkedIn to 12 to 15 people. And will I ever cross paths with them? Possibly. But take your friend Christian. You introduced me to Christian some 4 years ago at a TopSoil event. I know he is an executive making decisions in the boardroom. Maybe someday I can help him make a decision. So take a professional relationship and move it down into a personal relationship. And digitization allows you to do that.
Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. And there's just so many of those folks that you can be connected with. And from my side, we've been able to really utilize social media, right? And utilize digital. A lot of these folks that I'm connected with on there, I don't know who they are. A lot of folks that follow me, I've never met them before. I don't know who they are, but they know who I am, right? And I run into these people that come up and they want to shake my hand or take a picture, act like they sure know me, and I have no idea who they are, right? So
Two
that's
words.
been an
Two
interesting
words.
thing to, but it's able to
You are
be
very curious.
utilize that, you know?
You are two things. In leadership, I probably have about 8 words that define leadership, but the last 2 would be to remain curious, keep yourself curious, and be humble. You never know when you can help someone, and in turn, in reciprocity, they're going to help you. So curiosity and humility go a long way in today's society, and particularly people are used to remote work. We don't have to meet at the water cooler anymore. So they've seen Mitchell Hora on a webinar or seen you as a panelist in one of the meetings you might go to, and they agree with your position. And they just want to say that to you. Say, Mitch, I really like you taking your time to go to Washington, D.C. and sit on this panel. And I agree with the position you took.
Yeah. No, it definitely happens all the time. And it's good, right? That a lot of times I feel like we're just working away, working away, working away, and not really getting anywhere. But there are a lot of folks that are really paying attention that actually care and don't have a very loud voice. And I try to amplify, the farmer voice and message. But
Look how important it is. We
yeah.
all celebrate your industry 3 times a day.
Mhm.
We have to eat, and the mechanization and the technology so that we eat better and safer and put the value where it really belongs. That's important to all of us. And when you only have, like I come back, you only have 1.6% of society in the center of that tornado. and you have a lot of spectators watching it, there's so much misinformation that the housewife or house person has when they go into the grocery store. Uh, Look, 4 years ago when we went through COVID and you went to the grocery store and the right food that you normally ate wasn't there, the paper products that you use weren't there. It was kind of an aha moment for people to realize how important forestry, agriculture, transportation, all that is, and we take it for granted.
Yeah. Russ, one of the things that you do that we haven't hit on here, I forget exactly the details of it, but you have something along the lines of your 7 word mission statement, or what do you it's not exactly that, but it's on your business card, I think, right on the back, your 9 word mission or 7 word mission, something like that. I'm screwing it up, but
You just happened to mention, you bet. I've got on my website. There's a 5 minute video about this, but in one of my performance reviews, one of my mentors, a close friend, Jim Irwin, we knocked it out of the park, had good numbers. I wondered what Jim was going to tell me. It will be no secret to you that his comment back was good team, good strategy. You're playing the game, but okay, it takes you too long to say what you want to say, too many words. So I said, well, screw you. I went back to my desk and I wrote down my business philosophy on a business card,
yeah.
less than 10 words. And that philosophy is you lead by example, you drive customer happiness, you build trust, and you listen. And probably the most important word is the listening part, because so many of us want to get our point across. Extroverts like me, extroverts want to talk all the time. And we claim we can talk and listen at the same time, which is
Yeah.
challengeable. But listening is important. And many people just wait until it's their turn to speak again, rather than empathetically listening and truly and letting the introvert flush out their idea. So many times we interrupt people before they get their idea out, and we miss the point. We miss that piece. So, yeah, that 9 word speech. In fact, I've made you as you can recall as the millennial group, MACKAYBEN. I made you write your 9 word speeches. I still have that video. I'll
Oh
probably have to
yeah.
come back to you.
Mine's definitely somewhere out there,
It
somewhere
is.
on the
I've got it
internet.
captured.
But I love that idea and the concept and stuff, right? Of being able to boil it down. And obviously, uh, as you're aware, I've definitely been accused of talking too much as well. But I think that is a good point. We got to condense that down, speak clearly and concisely. It's actually part of the conversation we got going on at this year's TopSoil Summit too. Connect to elevate is the theme, and it's about that connecting the ag story, likely with data and technology, but connecting with policymakers, connecting into marketplaces, connecting with consumers, and that's what Zach will be talking about too, is that connection. But when we are connecting, we got a very short time to be able to do it. You better talk meaningfully. You better talk eloquently if you're going to get your point across and make sure that it makes a lasting impact.
Less is more. Less is truly more. And you and your cohort need to have a real tight message and continue to repeat it succinctly so you're lined up. And then all you need is one contrarian that, one contrarian can offset 10, people in the right lineup. And that's why I think this is why being engaged in seminars or face-to-face activities like topsoil are important because you build an advocacy there. You very tightly have a platform. This is what we believe in. This is what we do, and this is why we do it. And oh, by the way, there's science behind it, science and data behind it, and stay there. Keep that particular uh, communication line very tight.
Well, it's um, everyone needs to be in the know. Everyone needs to be aware of what's going on and be rowing all the boats in the same direction. That there's a lot that's always pushing against us here in ag, and we are very all over the place and have a lot of different issues, a lot of things that we need to go our way, whether it be in tax bill type stuff with stepped up basis and death tax and all these type of things that are extremely important, but then also policy around biofuels, policy around farm bill, policy around trade, policy around inputs, like all of these different labor, all these things are huge, big
Well,
time topics that we have to worry about all of them in agriculture, a lot of other industries. may not have to worry about all the different breadth of all these different moving pieces.
Nothing speaks louder to the misunderstanding of agriculture that we would go 2 years without a farm bill.
Yeah.
And that's very important. I mean, I get it that 75 to almost 78% of the farm bill is nutrition and the SNAP program, but those other I would be strongly against separating nutrition and SNAP away from the farm bill because that other 25% or 20% is so important
Yeah.
to the conservation or the security of insurance or the programs that do guide our food channel. And I'm not going to say we eat healthy as Americans, but we certainly have an abundance as Americans.
Yeah, I know that's what I've heard too, is like getting them, separating them, um, very much likely net would not be good for ag, especially
No,
long term.
I think we'd get lost if we
We
think
get,
we're lost in the shuffle today, it would be even worse if the
we
nutrition.
definitely get lost too. That's right.
Yeah.
A couple other questions I've got. You've managed thousands of employees throughout your career. What are some of the key lessons that you've learned there, key tidbits, that have really worked for you well as you are leading teams and in a lot of cases massive teams? What are some of the key things that you have done that made you successful in
I
able.
love the question. I love the question because uh, I think you need to recognize you're seldom the smartest person in the room.
I'm
Seldom.
often reminded of that by my team.
Okay. You're seldom the smartest person in the room. And if you've your job is to find the right people, you've read the Collins book, you get the right people on the bus.
Mhm.
Well, once they're on the bus, don't just let them ride, let them drive, and young people today want a purpose-driven position. They, they get such a bad rap about work ethic and all of us baby boomers and we're a product of the greatest generation and work was different. I mean, you really sweat when you worked. Today's generation are better thinkers and they search out knowledge and they genuinely think through problems and they want to solve them. And my generation thinks, well, it's hard to find somebody that'll give you 40 hours a week. You give them the right work and they'll give you 50 hours a week.
100%.
They may not want to work 8 hours a day. They got a fourth grade softball game at 2 o'clock this afternoon. They'd like to be there. In fact, maybe they'd like to coach it. So if they're purposely working, and they also want to work in teams, they like teamwork.
Mhm.
So recognize that not everybody's like you, and look at the skills. I've written an article. One of the things I wrote about was the smile dial at your business. Walk through your business and look for people that are smiling and take how long time it takes you to go through and find 10 smiles. Write down that time. And if you find somebody that's not smiling, ask them the question, what's up? Are we not feeling good today? Or is there upstream from you some business that's not coming your way that you need? The team's not working well. But don't just ignore it, but be humble about it and find out in the stream of processes what can be improved. And I think I was in a meeting in Calgary last week and a young guy asked me the same question. He said, what can I do to build a stronger team? I said, how many people you got in your organization? He says 50. I got 50. Well, I said, take the last two. Take your last two hires, whenever they were, 6 months ago, 8 months ago, it's 2 weeks ago. Take those last two, walk up to them when you get home and say, hey, I'd like to buy you lunch next Tuesday because I want you to tell me how my business can be made better. You would blow away. You would blow that employee away to think that the owner of the place values my opinion and I want to share it with them. You'd have an employee for life. You
Yeah.
just simply have to ask questions. So I've made plenty of mistakes. I'm not going to tell you that there's having a time when I've been pretty arrogant and there's been one way or the highway, but I learned over time that when you put the people around you that are authentic and transparent and trustworthy, you get a lot more done. And listen to them. That last line of the business card, listening, be a good listener.
I think that's been huge for us at Continuum, and I definitely have not always done the greatest job either, but I think we've been able to really build some good systems there, and people are listened to, but there's also that trust factor as well that you can step up and raise your voice no matter who you are in the organization, and you're not just going to be shot down. It's healthy conflict, right? We've gone through stages here where we didn't have healthy conflict, where people weren't able to raise their voice, and that very quickly had to be the problem had to be taken care of very, very quickly because it was bad. And but now we're in a spot where anybody can raise their voice at any time. It may not end up being the consensus of the group when we're all said and done, but at least they can raise their point and feel like they've got the room to be able to say that, because that right amount of healthy conflict and trust in each other is there.
I like your term, conflict. Uh, Constructive tension is the word that we would use. There's going to be time when things go, deadlines are happening, a disruption happens, and I
Yeah.
think that's. I think that one thing that defines the stability of an organization is how you can deal with a disruption. I watched my father-in-law, you knew Robbie. My father-in-law Robbie was a grain trader, a feed supplier to a community like Washington County in November. Harvest is on. Nothing could be more important than getting the crop in, and his house burns down. His daughter, my wife's at college. He's got 4 children living in a house, and his house burnt down in the middle of a season. And to watch how he professionally and with balance managed that disruption, and the way the community had an outpouring of love and trust for that family, and got them back on their feet was, I in my bio I write that one of my characteristics is being raised by a community that cared for each other and saw the community value. And when I saw that happen with Robbie, Robbie became as much of a father figure to me as my own father, and I learned so much from his ethic and from his he was a man of very, very few words, but when he spoke, you listened because you knew it was going to be meaningful. And so, how you deal with a disruption, and hey, my disruptions. I've had premature grandchildren, I've had childhood cancer, I've had a shark attack, all through my family, and those things are going to be pretty challenging. But the stability of my family position, my wife's position, the trust we had we knew we were going to get through that. It was going to be problematic, but on the backside, we're going to be better than we were on the front side.
We're running out of time here, which I knew we were going to do. But one other thing I wanted to ask about you have a lot of very good routines and kind of how you set yourself up and able to get a tremendous amount done. What are just some of those things that you do that you think have been able to make you efficient and able to be so high performing? Any hot take on some of that? Because I know you've got some great ones.
Well, I think again it comes back. Know who to trust when you hit a point where you're blocked. Go to the people that you know and trust and ask them for advice and direction. I think that's important. I do my best thinking in the shower every morning. I usually come out of the shower with 4 things I want to do, and I do them quickly. I mean, I don't let them labor. And I've got lists setting on my desk of things I want to get accomplished before the end of the week. And and I also think that a phone call connection is trumps a text message or a email message, because then you get a dialogue going. If you can connect, and usually before I make a phone call, I will send a text message saying, "Hey, Mitch, is it a good time to talk?"
Yeah.
And I know that you're not tied down with something else, and time's not important to me, and you can call me back at your leisure. So I think that connectivity is fine, but it's just take care of the hardest things first. The hardest thing you got to do today, take care of it first. That'll make the rest of the day pretty easy. If you put it off and agonize it until I'll get it done at 4 o'clock, 5:30 is here and you haven't done it, and then that baseball game, dance recital, soccer game gets in the way, and now it's tomorrow. Boy, I wish you'd done that today. So take care of the hardest things first, do it early, and but to me, a phone call trumps another digital message if you can make it. And you've heard my line. I got a cell phone when I was 39 years old. And today's young people get one at baptism and they know how to use it. And if you want to text them and say, "Hey, Mitch, I need to talk to you before 2 o'clock," I know that Mitch is going to give me a call at 1 o'clock.
Yeah, well, most of the time when I'm driving somewhere. That's
Windshield time,
a
windshield time.
lot of phone calls when I'm on the road, but that's a lot of times how I'm able to
No,
do
but that's the and but I
it.
but I know I have an empathy for what you're doing.
And
I know that you have a challenging lifestyle. I know that you're the anxiety of running a business, and all I want to do is meet you where you want to be met,
yeah,
and take care of things that you have on your. And I've used some of the things your EOS and things that you're doing with that. I've got other young people that are using it now, and I said, "Hey, if it's not going to be easy, call Mitch. He'll tell you
yeah,
how to handle it. You know."
yeah. We've been doing it for more than 7 years, 7.5 years. EOS is
And
entrepreneur
doing it
operating
well. I
system for
watched you guys
doing
perform in one
well.
of your phone calls. It's great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. EOS is entrepreneur operating system for anyone unfamiliar with it. It's basically a process, right, of having vision, setting annual goals, quarterly goals, weekly metrics, and um, keeping the team all rowing in the same direction towards these common goals. The key,
Isn't that where I picked up the rock term, right?
that's where rocks come in. Yeah, so quarterly goals are called rocks, right? And they're
Yeah.
supposed to be the big things, right? So just like you said, Russ, get the biggest, toughest thing done first part of the day. That's the whole concept of rock. That if you've got a jar and if you put in the water and the sand and the pebbles first, there's no room for the rocks, right? But if you put the big rocks in first, then the pebbles fill in around it, then the sand fills in around that, then the water, it all fits in the jar, aka your day, right? Or your quarter. So not that I'm always great at it because I get distracted and got a
And
gazillion different things going
well,
on. But the concept is really superb.
it's one of those do as I say, not as I do things, right?
It's why we've learned at Continuum that Mitch should not have any rocks, very few, if any, because it's other people need to be put in that elevated position to own the rocks, own the accountability. They take the lead, get me out of the way. I'm often just a bottleneck, and I'm bringing new stuff all the time, right? 'Cause we got to figure out how to continue to navigate. Where is the route going to go? I'm a visionary, right? So I'm trying to figure out where do we got to go. I'm bringing new ideas, and the rest of the team can thrive in their individual roles to perform their tasks to see the vision through and get it done. It may end up being put into play differently than how I originally envisioned it, but that almost always means that it's better than what I envisioned because the folks that are actually in the day to day of it, they understand how to get it done definitely better than what I would have done because I probably wouldn't have gotten it done at all. I'm on to the next thing all the time. But it's been a really really important concept for accountability and keeping everyone on rowing in the right direction and been on it since the very like when I was first starting to hire employees. Usually EOS is good for 10 employees or more. We did it right out the gate, first employees, and been really really important to do so.
By the way, your analogy of rowing, my freshman college grandson's on a crew team.
Yeah,
And so your analogy of rowing in the same direction and in the same sequence, he'll love it. He'll know that
he's all for that.
he's getting ready for business, getting ready for business.
I love it. All right, I got to wrap things up here. Russ and I will talk all day. A couple things. Thanks everyone that was able to join live here. And for those that are listening after, reminder we have our Topsoil Summit coming up June 3rd. Russ is planning on being there, so you can come see him, hang out, and see a lot of these other folks here in Southeast Iowa. Some highlights for this year: we have the CEO of the Renewable Fuel Association is coming. Our buddy Zach Johnson, the Millennial Farmer, folks from LanzaJet, folks from other SAF producing groups. Paul Neefer, the farm CPAs, he big following on online and whatnot as well. Folks from our third party auditor, tax credit brokers, just so many key um, sponsors, including Corteva, who's a presenting sponsor this year. But um, really, really going to be an awesome event and there's so much happening in Washington, D.C. here. I even beyond a daily basis with these new tax bills and all this stuff moving forward. I really need to stay up to date. And we'll have the latest at the Topsoil Summit. We have code Russ for 50% off your registration if you are on here. Special offer for folks that registered for this event. So use code Russ when you're checking out and get your tickets $25. And when you use that, just helping us cover the cost of the amazing venue and food and whatnot. But other than that, we got our chit chats every Tuesday. So you can always get your questions answered there and some of the latest. And this webinar and all of them, they're on the Continuum Ag YouTube page and the Topsoil podcast. So be sure to check that out. So lots more to come, lots more conversation to be had. But Russ, this has been awesome to have you on. We were just scratching the surface, but I love the things you've been doing and the giving back, and it's really cool, and really love what you're doing. And just your heart is one of the biggest that I've seen of anybody. It's really amazing.
Say hi to mom and dad for me, will you?
Will do, absolutely. We'll see you soon. Thanks everybody for joining here today. Be safe out there. We'll catch you next time.